Just give us a lawfare update in your view, very quickly. What's going on?
Sure. Well, all of the cases against President Trump continue apace, but I think the one that's most in the spotlight at the moment, John, is the so-called January 6th related case, or what the left calls, the election overturning case. Well, whatever the name they try to give to it, it's a complete misnomer because it's a made-up set of charges against the president, just trying to turn his attempts to get a review of the election, to exercise his options, and try to turn that into a criminal act. So the most recent thing that's happened, which has hair on fire and great, celebrations in Mudville for the left, is this move by Jack Smith to do something called cert before judgment. Cert is short for certiorari, to file a motion with the Supreme Court asking them to skip the Court of Appeals at the intermediate stage. That's usually what happens. So first you get a district court ruling. That's the trial court in this instance, headed up by one judge, Judge Chutkan. Then you go to the D.C. Circuit, and then after those two levels are exhausted, you can go to the Supreme Court. But what Jack Smith has done is he has filed to go right to the Supreme Court. And that has happened before. It's not something that happens with great regularity. As I was explaining to someone, actually, John, who was saying they're thinking about going to law school last night, perhaps the most famous case I think of that skipped right to the Supreme Court is the case about President Truman's seizure of the steel mills during the Korean War to try to keep them operating, and was seen as obviously a great emergency because of that effort. So to try to paint this case as if it's at that level of emergency is, I think, very misleading. But the Supreme Court seems to be, wanting to hear as soon as possible on this case, which I think is, somewhat troubling, because what's the hurry? I don't think that there's any objective hurry whatsoever. The only hurry that exists is in the mind of Jack Smith and in the mind of the Biden administration, because they want to try to do President Trump in or do damage to him as much as possible with this D.C. Trial that relates to January 6th before the election that they can. And, I looked at the rule and, I've thought about past cases. I've never seen any set of political considerations like that, like what helps the incumbent president being part of the criteria for granting so-called cert before judgment. So this is an effort that should be seen as nakedly political. I think it should be denied. But I actually, I'm here to tell you, John, I'm sad to report that they might not deny it. They might put it on this fast track because they might seriously entertain the idea that they have to try to let the March trial date that Judge Chutkan has set against President Trump in D.C., that they're furiously trying to maintain that because it's quickly coming up.